Right, hello guys, welcome back to my first build video for the Edge of Fate expansion. Today we are diving into what I think is, contrary to popular belief, one of the strongest Titan builds in the Edge of Fate, which not only sports great survivability and damage, but also an unrivaled fun factor which no other build could possibly match. So in order to not waste any more of your time and get you back into the fight on Kepler, let's get started. You've probably already guessed from the title and thumbnail, but today's build focuses heavily on the buffed Solar Titan kit, which is truly a force to be reckoned with. And it all hinges on the brand new exotic Melas Panoplia that augments your throwing hammer melee to deal bonus explosion damage and have the ability to recall it just like Thor. However, also in the thumbnail was a big crossed out syntheseps, and there's a reason for that. If like me, you took Solar Titan through your first run through of the campaign, you probably realized pretty quickly that something was off. And well, it is. For some reason, your throwing hammers now bounce around a ton and often end up going off the map or completely out of reach, because they also have a slight cooldown before you can pick them up again. It's not actually instant like it used to be in the OG days, and full transparency, this is a bit of a letdown and will hopefully get fixed. But the good news is that this ultimately doesn't matter, because for one, with Melas Panoplia, you don't have to worry about collecting your hammer because you can simply recall it, and second, believe it or not, the damage from it is, rather shockingly, identical to that of Synthos at maximum effect. Let me explain. By default, your throwing hammer deals 449 damage, and a perfect recall from Melas Panoplia deals 242 damage, which by the way does scale with Roaring Flames, as you can see here, where the hammer damage gets raised to 1346 and the perfect recall to 725, both of which are triple the damage of the original, something which Bungie did buff in the Edge of Fate patch because they raised the damage of Roaring Flames ×3 specifically for melee damage from 73% to 200%, aka 3 times base. So taking this to the absolute extreme by adding in a 1-2 punch shotgun plus 200 melee stat, with Melas Panoplia your hammer now deals a total of 3567 damage, and on the flip side, again with a 1-2 punch shotgun and 200 melee with syntheseps this time, your hammer deals 3587 damage, as in literally 20 points more than Melas Panoplia. So for all intents and purposes, they're basically identical. However, Melas Panoplia has the advantage of its damage being at least partially distributed in a wider area, plus the obvious fact that you can recall the hammer if you lose it, which at least to me makes it the de facto winner of the Solar Titan exotics. Further to that, there are several more optimizations we can make so that the build is truly seamless and easy to use while also becoming incredibly powerful. So let's dive right in. And if you like this content, then be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel. For the super of choice, we're going with Burning Maul, mainly because it's excellent for clearing large waves of ads and gives you the option to swap to Pyrogale gauntlets for any damage related reason. And actually, if you want to know how much damage Pyrogale is dealing in the brand new system, then feel free to check out my previous super testing video. Moving along, for the standard abilities, I've gone for Rally Barricade, Throwing Hammer, obviously, and Healing Grenade. For the aspects, we of course have Roaring Flames. This is going to make it so solar ability final blows increase the damage of your solar abilities by up to 73% for grenades and supers, and up to 200% for melee abilities like we previously discussed. Then for our second aspect, we're going with Sol Invictus. Sol Invictus is simply going to make it so any solar ability final blow spawns a sunspot that when passed through grants restoration and increased grenade and melee ability regeneration speeds, but we mainly want it for the restoration to keep us sustained, because unfortunately the solar subclasses don't have any form of damage resistance verbs. Fragments wise, we first want Ember of Torches. This is simply going to make it so hits with Throwing Hammer apply radiant to yourself and any nearby allies, which by the way is a 20% weapon damage buff. Next, we're taking Ember of Empyrean to make it so solar final blows extend the duration of any radiant or restoration effects applied to you, so you never end up losing them. Then Ember of Ashes, so that any source of scorch you apply applies 50% more scorch, leading to even more potential ignitions. Finally, we have the most important fragment, and that is Ember of Searing. Reason being, Melas Panoplia takes 3 rapid solar kills to become a Forge Master, but it also only takes collecting 1 Fire Sprite, and the easiest way to ensure that is with Ember of Searing. Why? Well, because having any amount of Roaring Flame stacks technically makes your unpowered melees apply Scorch. One way to spawn a Fire Sprite is to get 1 stack of Roaring Flames, punch an enemy with your base melee applying Scorch, and thus when they die they automatically drop a Fire Sprite, instantly making you a Forge Master. So definitely have this fragment on. But a second and far easier way is done via our weapon choice, but more on that in a moment. Okay, that about does it for your abilities, so now let's talk stats. And admittedly, there's a lot to digest in this new system, so I'm going to try and make it as simple as possible for you. For this build in particular, you're going to want to get as much melee stat as possible, because your hammers and slag explosions explosions benefit from the multiplicative melee damage increase, which at 200 stat is 30% by the way. Currently I have 152 melee, which is roughly a 15% increase. Then I've got around 70 super, 60 grenade, and the rest aren't terribly important. And to get these stats or similar, here's a rough guide on the pieces you need. 2 pieces of brawler armor with a tertiary stat in grenade, 2 pieces of paragon armor with a tertiary stat in grenade, and finally another paragon piece with a tertiary stat in health, which also applies to your exotic by the way. With this distribution, your hammer is fully recharged on pickup, your super also recharges fairly quickly, and your grenade in a slightly longer than normal time. But to be honest, you won't notice it because the various fire sprites you create and Sol Invictus will be providing passive energy gains without you even noticing. The weapon stat doesn't matter since we aren't using weapons terribly often, and health also isn't that important since we have constant restoration procs. So even if the armor you have isn't fantastic yet, either you've got bad RNG or incorrect archetypes, still try to prioritize having over 100 melee or as close to 150 or 160 as you can, since it's crucial to getting the most out of your hammer. Do keep in mind that you can slot ghost mods which increase the chance for you to earn a specific armor archetype, so make sure to tune these as and when you need them. Moving on to weapons and artifact perks, the first we're going to talk about is the absolute star of the show, and that is the newly buffed and reworked Devil's Ruin exotic sidearm. Several changes have been made to Devil's Ruin where it now behaves substantially different from what it did before. Now, scoring a kill generates a guaranteed fire sprite, which if you remember what I said earlier is the second and easiest way to get our Melas Panoplia kickstarted, and upon collecting said fire sprite, 2 things happen. 1, you become a Forge Master, and 2, you can now alt-reload Devil's Ruin to enter Pyrogenesis mode and unleash the Laser Blast, which by the way now scorches on hit and kills cores ignitions, and if the target is beefy enough, hitting at least 60% of the laser on them will also trigger an ignition. The nice part is that once your Forge Master inevitably runs out, your Devil's Ruin will have its next Pyrogenesis ready to go, which spawns another fire sprite which charges the next Pyrogenesis for next time, and so on and so on. These two pair really nicely together and fit super well into the build overall. Plus, with how complicated the special ammo situation is right now, it doesn't hurt to have a primary weapon available because they do fill the special meter significantly faster. After that, all that's left is to pair a suitable 1-2 punch shotgun to increase your melee damage even further, and if you have it, I'd strongly recommend the Perfect Paradox from Episode Echoes. But if you're a brand new or returning player, then the Wastelander from Dares of Eternity also gets 1-2 punch, but any shotgun with 1-2 punch will do as long as it's in the top slot. Taking a look at the artifact now, the first perk you'll be needing is Diviner's Discount in column 2 to reduce the cost of all ammo scavenger mods to 1, then Reciprocal Draw in column 3. This perk makes it so getting at least 2 rapid kills with other weapons temporarily boosts the damage of your equipped sidearms when drawn. And for primary ammo sidearms, this turns out to be a stackable 35% increase that lasts for 5 seconds. So despite not needing to get kills with Devil's Ruin that often, it doesn't hurt to have. Also in column 3, we're taking Refresh Threads so that collecting a fire sprite grants energy to our least charged ability, and then moving into column 4, we're taking Elemental Coalescence. This perk makes it so rapid kills from seemingly any source have a chance to spawn a subclass pickup, aka fire sprites, so you might as well take this to maximize your avenues of spawning fire sprites. Lastly, in column 5, we're going to want 2 mods, the first being Radiant Shrapnel. This perk states that defeating a scorched combatant with a weapon causes the target to release solar projectiles, and taking a look in-game, it spawns the magma blobs from the Touch of Flame solar grenade on Warlock, so it's just a nice bit of extra damage for when you're getting kills with Devil's Ruin. Finally, the last perk we're taking is Elemental Overdrive. This perk simply makes it so collecting an elemental pickup grants increased damage to weapons of the same element, which in-game translates to a 6-second 10% damage buff that stacks with all other buffs. So it simply acts to improve our Devil's Ruin damage just a little bit more. Onto the last section now, we have our armor mods and set bonuses, a new feature which we haven't had the privilege to talk about before. So out of all the possible bonuses, which ones suit this build the best? Well, at least for me, I haven't had enough time to grind for them, but the Bushido set looks pretty relevant here, because the 2-piece perk states that final blows with freshly drawn or reloaded weapons heal you, and then the 4-piece perk makes it so bow, shotgun, or sword final blows temporarily reduce incoming damage. Damaging targets with those weapons extends the effect. So for a build that gets you to swap between weapons frequently like this one, where one of those weapons also happens to be a shotgun, is pretty appropriate in my opinion. So look out for the Bushido set when making this build. Mods wise, we're starting with the helmet, and we have 1 copy of Hands-On for some bonus super energy on melee kills, 1 special ammo finder to increase counter progress, and solar/harmonic siphon. For the gloves, we're taking 2 copies of Melee Font to increase our melee stat by plus 40 points points whenever we're holding armor charge, which if you consider that I'm personally at 150 melee from my armor would effectively put me at 190 melee, increasing the damage of my hammer even further. Then 1 copy of heavy-handed to spawn orbs on melee kills. Chest piece is just general resist mods like usual. Then for the boots we have stacks on stacks plus kinetic and void scavenger. Finally for the class item we have 1 copy of time dilation to increase our melee font duration plus reaper and special finisher. As far as the optimal gameplay loop is concerned, your aim should be to start an engagement by getting a kill with Devil's Ruin, collecting the fire sprite it drops, then work on getting your Roaring Flame stacks increased by any means necessary, making sure to take advantage of 1-2 punch as well to raise the damage of your hammer even further. And remember that with Melas Panoplia you can activate 1-2 punch on a close by ad, but still throw the hammer to other further away ads because you can simply recall it after defeating them. This build is hands down one of the most fun builds I've ever played with in the game that also happens to be fairly endgame viable, so I really encourage you to try it and push past the sentiment around regular throwing hammers, because with this build right here there are no such problems indeed. As always, the dim link for this build will be right down in the description for you to copy hassle-free, and if you enjoyed the video then a like and subscribe is greatly appreciated. I've got plenty more to come in the way of exciting builds just like this one, but until then, thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now, dear viewer.